Okay, so I'm going to try and do a video that comes in under 20 minutes. I didn't think that would be a challenge. I thought I would always have too few things to say, but here I am finding myself too wordy. And suddenly the sun comes out and blinds me. Let's sit in the dark instead. I've spent the last 3 days proofreading, which is not the most fun activity. It's not even one of my books, but it is a good book, and it's by Mitchell Faywood, who under another name has beta read basically all of my books, provided enormous help to me, so something I certainly owe her in return. And you can still enjoy a book when you're beta reading, but I don't suppose you should really, because you should be so laser focused on those typos that you're not getting any enjoyment. So maybe I did it wrong. Today's arrival that I should show off is the Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. I thought, seeing as somebody had violently tried to stop him in his tracks, I should go and read the book that caused a fuss and basically tell anyone who's interested in stopping other people reading books to fuck off. So this thing I'm going to do today is just a new way of generating content. I've found a rather lazy scheme where I've got an enormous number of bookcases around the house, all stuffed with fantasy books, many of which I've not read and didn't purchase. My wife and kids or have had periods of buying fantasy books in the past. So I thought I would just do one shelf at a time and go through it, what's there, what I've read, what I thought of it very quickly. And this is on my blog too. Again, I just tend to write these things down, so I've got access to photographs and brief notes. So this is the first shelf, and I arranged them alphabetically as far as I'm allowed to by my family. And so these are the A's up to Asimov. And as we saw with the SPFBO books, probably half the books I own are not actually on the shelves, but these are the ones that are. So because the big photo is of insufficient resolution, I'm going to look at this shelf in 3 bits. We start off with a whole bunch of books by Ben Aranovich, I think that's how you say it, all part of a series, and I've not read any of them. It's the Rivers of London series about some policeman, I believe, who sees ghosts and helps him solve crimes. It's supposed to be very good, but I've not read them. And then we have 4 books by Joe Abercrumble, including 2 Half a Kings, which I guess makes a whole king. I've not read any of these either, or any book by Abercrombie, but I guess I think my son has read these ones. The reason we got 2 Half a Kings is because I get sent a lot of ARC's advanced reader copies, and one of those, the one in gold, is an ARC, and then my family pay no attention to what I do, so if they want a book, they just go out and buy it, and so we end up with doubles. And what's that next one? Looks like Tomi. I'm going to say this wrong, but looks like Tomi Adeyemi. And again, that's not a book I've read. So not doing very well. We looked at the 3rd of the shelf, and I've not read any of the books on it. And this is my own fantasy shelf. Let's move on to the middle section, where we encounter the first book I have read, which is Son of the Morning by Mark Alder, which I enjoyed. It's a sort of based on a mix of medievalist fantasy based on real history, the Black Prince and all of that sort of stuff, and a lot of conflict in France, reimagined where angels and devils are real. and nations kind of exploit or invoke angels on their side, and devils are in the mix, messing things up for everyone. Alder is a very good prose writer. I've got this line here which I really enjoyed. A kestrel silver in the dusk turned the world around its wing, a beat, a flutter, a sudden and momentary fury. It tumbled, stopped, and hovered motionless, its wings wide, possessing the land. I like that sort of stuff. So that's one of the reasons I enjoyed the book. I actually enjoyed the sort of history bits of it almost more than the fantasy bits. It does a very good job with the characters. Margaret Atwood, very famous book, The Handmaid's Tale. I've not read it. Neil Asher, on the other hand, this is the book of his I've read. He was kind enough, before Prince of Thorns was even published. I just, because new authors Google their books all the time, I came across an early review that was on Neil's website. My publishers must have sent him a copy. He was very kind about it, so I decided to pick up one of his books, and I enjoyed it. He writes he writes sci-fi, hardish sci-fi, and there's lots of crabs in it, sort of armored space crabs doing all sorts of cunning stuff. I think one of the robots, Love, Death and Robots series, he wrote one of the episodes in the most recent series for that, the one which was on a boat and had some sort of freaky evil crab in the hold. In this one, the Skinner, I read it a long time ago, but the world, the alien world, is sort of the superstar of the book, where basically the flora and fauna, everything is trying to eat you. So the humans who go there with all their high-tech stuff are in a constant battle with the things that live there. And then there's a plot that plays out. It's very imaginative, it's good stuff. And then we have Paternus, the 3 Paternus books. I think it's just a trilogy. The first one, Paternus, Dirk Ashton came third in the second SPFBO. So 300 books entered, he came third. And I ended up reading the book. It's possibly sent it to me. I think certainly sent me the other 2, I think. I really enjoyed it. He breaks an awful lot of writing rules, but because he's a really good writer, he gets away with it. He does a bunch of stuff that you really are advised not to do. For example, he does a lot of info dumping, but it's so entertaining and interesting that I bought into it. What he's done in this trilogy is to take basically every mythos you've ever heard of gods, and a bunch you haven't heard of but are real ones he's researched, and he brings them all to life as set in the real world, in modern times, but all of these mythos are real, and all the gods and the mythical creatures from them are wandering around unseen by most normal people, and it focuses on some people who get wrapped up in their shenanigans. But there's all manner of fights and battles, and it's all very imaginative, entertaining stuff, and I must get on to the next 2 books one of these days. But this is me all over. I tend to read one book of a series, and then unless it's under exceptional circumstances, I generally move on, because I'm such a slow reader. I like to read as many authors as possible. For example, if I was to take a big series, I could spend an entire year reading that, and I don't really want to spend an entire year just reading the prose and ideas of one author. I'd rather read 10 different ones. And the final section of this shelf is got The Black Cross there by J.P. Ashman. He's a self-published author who I know from BristolCon. Nice guy. We met there a few times, and he gave me a copy of his book, which I read. It's a sort of vaguely D&D-ish one, I think, with lots of different races, elves, lots of different monsters. And the main thing I remember about it was it's got an enormous number of point of views, which it sort of steps between, like, one after the other. I think maybe there are, I mean, I could be lying here, but I've got a feeling there's like 20, and you don't get a repeat. You just move from one to the next, which is a a really interesting way of telling a story, and people should check it out and if it sounds interesting. Pushing on because we're trying to do this fast. What's that? It's called Everworld. I can't really read the name there, but I've written below. It's by Catherine Applegate. I didn't know we had the book, and I've never heard of it, so I can't say much there. And all the rest of the books are by Isaac Asimov, including, I believe, 2 copies of Foundation and Earth, yes, because we've got a box set of 4 there, and then we've got this Foundation and Earth just sort of hanging out on the side. I read the Foundation series an enormous amount of time ago. I'm very old. I'm in my mid-50s, so I can say things like I read this 40 years ago, and I think I did. I enjoyed the ideas in Foundation. I couldn't tell you an awful lot about them apart from this mathematics of mass psychology and civilization that enables the people involved to predict where society is going and then try and manipulate it to save us from various calamities. So it's an extremely imaginative book. In sci-fi, often characters come across a bit flat. They're kind of squashed by the idea. A lot of sci-fi is focused on the big ideas, and the characters are just there to sort of work the handles and show you the bells and whistles of this idea. It's not true of all sci-fi by any means, but I feel Asimov's characters, as I recall them, were pretty flat, but that I wasn't bothered by it because of the scale of the thing and the excitement of the ideas. The rest of his books I've not really read much of. I have read this one here, Stars Like Dust. That was one of my first ever sci-fi reads, and I can't tell you a damn thing about it except I'm left with an enduring sense that I enjoyed it, and it was, again, impressive, having many good ideas. And if you were of a scientific bent, then Asimov, who I believe was quite an accomplished scientist, is able to, he writes hard sci-fi, which means it sort of it doesn't have sort of magical elements to it. It's all attributed to science, but it's also attributed to science that somehow hangs together and connects with the science, both the science we know and with itself in a meaningful way. And that's shelf 1. I've got loads more shelves, so potentially we can work our way through a lot more future. I will do my hunting for the turning off button and hope we've managed to do it in well under 20 minutes. It feels like it was pretty short. See you next time.